Hey there, Mudroomers. It is Carmen here with Mako, and today we're going to go over our glaze profile for our Stoneware Crystal Glaze Enchanted Forest. As with all of our stoneware glazes, they are available in 16-ounce pints for brushing, as well as 5-pound dry bags for dipping, and in particular for stoneware crystal glazes, we recommend pouring. If you go ahead and check out the label here, this is going to showcase a lot of very important information. On the side here, we have our ACMI AP seal, and that is in regards to the wet glaze before it's fired. So it's AP certified as non-toxic. The dinnerware safe symbol here. All of our stoneware glazes are food safe, but we do denote their suitability for contact with food surfaces right here. Our lot number is something that you're going to want to take note of if you do want to report anything to technical, if you have any issues. So keep track of that. It's right by the barcode as well as on the dry bag. So make sure you log it, take a photo, or keep the bag in that instance. And here we have our recommended firing range from cone 5 to 10. All of our samples we fire to cone 6 on a white stoneware clay body. So anything outside of that could possibly have variation. So as always, we do recommend testing. And then on the side here, we just have some firing results, application instructions, suggestions and tips, as well as safety information. So definitely check out the label. It's full of lots of useful information, and we have a lot of info on the website about individual glazes as well. So definitely check out our website too. Today for our tile review, while I'm doing that, I do want to be applying some of Enchanted Forest onto a tile just to showcase good brushing application with this product. I typically use our RB144 number 4 fan, but I also do recommend using our 140 number 8 fan. Both are really nice for applying glaze. They have soft bristles, so they plump up really well, and you can apply a decent amount of product with minimal amount of effort. A lot of synthetic brushes will kind of scrape the glaze across the surface, and what I like to think of is layering it on kind of like peanut butter. I want to thicken up the material and the product on the surface. So it's going to work a little bit different than using paint. So as you can see, I like to plump up my brush really well. It's almost dripping off the surface here, or literally dripping off my brush. I'm just going to apply this kind of like I did on these tiles with 1, 2, and 3 coats. So there we go. There's one nice coat on there. You can see I didn't drag my brush at all if I'm applying it, and it's looking like that and skipping, or you can hear the brush dragging. Then you want to apply more glaze, but this looks like a good application for my first coat. See how it's staying nice and saturated? It's not drying immediately. That's another sign that I put on a nice good coat. So this I'm going to have kind of looking similar to this. So I have 1, 2, and 3 coats. All right, so to the tiles. So starting off, I'll go with Mako's sort of standard. So we do our cone 6 tile here. We have 1, 2, and 3 coats. As you can see, the color saturation as well as the crystal level increases with each coat. This glaze is a nice charcoal gray that builds up as you apply the glaze, and it breaks really well over texture. This base glaze is transparent, so you could see design work underneath it. Of course, design work would show up better underneath 1 coat than it would 3 coats. As you can see, it would kind of cloud it up a little bit. So we've got 1, 2, and 3 coats here, and then on the back I have 3 coats on the whole thing, just on a smooth surface, so no texture to break over or anything like that. And here we have our cone 5 results. So cone 5 and cone 6 here with this glaze in particular look pretty much the same. I can't even really tell a difference. So this glaze matures really well at cone 5, and cone 6 doesn't really change anything much here. So maybe a little bit of the crystal development actually. If you look here, the crystals are not quite as spread out as they are over here. So maybe not a lot of color change, but a little bit, as you might imagine, a little bit more heat work does melt those crystals a bit more. So cone 5 and cone 6. And then here we'll go to cone 10 reduction. So cone 10 reduction, you do, of course, have more crystal melting, and this base glaze kind of turns a little bluish, which is pretty cool. It still breaks really well over texture and is still translucent for sure. Design work underneath it, I would imagine, might blur a little bit, although this glaze does not really move a lot even at cone 10. So cone 6, very, very stable. Literally does not move at all. So you can be really confident applying nice heavy glaze here. And even at cone 10, I have 3 coats on this tile, and I have a little bit of pooling, but it's barely even bumped up. So I think it would take a lot for this to drip at cone 10. So those are kind of the 3 typical firing temperatures that we take this to. Obviously, anywhere in between is good for you. Just kind of base it off of the results here. So this glaze in particular doesn't have a whole lot of variation, honestly. I'm going to go ahead and apply my second coat of glaze here. I can see it's nice and dry. It's not really, there's only shiny in a couple spots, but in general it's pretty dry. Gonna go ahead and load up my brush really well, nice and heavy. So I'm gonna do that 1, 2, and 3 coats. I do recommend that everyone kind of test glazes this way. Doing 1, 2, and 3 coats, it really helps you understand the product itself better, as well as understand kind of your own hand and how the product will work in your environment. So just doing 3 coats at first, everyone does 3 coats differently. So my 3 coats could be, you know, your 2 coats, or your 2 coats could be, you know, my 5 coats or something like that. So definitely 1, 2, and 3 coats is kind of a nice way to gauge how you apply product, as well as how the product will react in your ceramics environment and in your practice. So here we'll go over flux. This tile here, I have 2 coats of flux at about a 1-inch band of each one, underneath 3 coats of Enchanted Forest. So you can see this beautiful blue variation that happens with the light flux on this side, and the dark flux seems to kind of blend in with that base glaze, which is not surprising, you know. It's kind of just like a dark transparent base glaze. This maybe makes it a little bit darker, but it doesn't even really move that much. So, and then here you can actually see the distinction a little bit better. So here we have 2 coats of light flux over and 2 coats of dark flux over Enchanted Forest. So you can still see that beautiful variation. This kind of pulls the crystals down a little bit more than it did seem to on this side, which it's kind of hard to tell because of the texture, but we have these crystals moving down and this beautiful blue stuff happening here. And then on this side we've got the dark flux, kind of looks like the base glaze, but here you can kind of see that brown with the dark flux instead of just the gray or charcoal color. And here is flux at cone 10. So this is flux over Enchanted Forest and fired to cone 10. So you can see there's a lot more movement here. So this was applied the same as this tile. So here's cone 10 and here's cone 6. But basically just a lot more movement here. So this was applied, again, a 1-inch band at the top, 2 coats. So that's the amount of movement that happened from that. And then here we have our alternative clay bodies. So I've been firing all of our alternative clay bodies to cone 6, and then I'll do a drop hold and a slow cool on that there. And this glaze, you might not need to do that. I think that you would probably be okay with just a hold. This glaze isn't super finicky. So this is speckled brown. This is dark brown. And speckled white. So none of these really have any surface issues, and the color variation is basically just from the color coming through the glaze. The base glaze itself doesn't really change color. All right, and so here, then we'll move on to our combinations. So like I said before, Enchanted Forest is a very, very stable glaze. It can add some mobility to combinations, basically because of the crystal loading, but generally the glaze is just a super, super stable glaze. So here I have it layered with Alabaster. And Alabaster can add mobility, so these two together, you know, you don't have a super straight, solid line. It did move a little bit, but really not too much. It's really common for crystals to kind of pop through the product here, or it's really common, yeah, for the crystals to pop through the layering here. So you got these green crystals, and it kind of changed the Alabaster to this grayish with some green. Here we have it layered with Cinnabar. So Cinnabar also is very stable. Layered together, we did have a little bit of movement, you know, nothing crazy from these here. Just like the other ones, the crystals come through. You can see the movement here too, how it's breaking around the top. So this is Enchanted Forest underneath Cinnabar. Yep, fired to cone 6. And then here we have Enchanted Forest underneath Copper Jade. So Copper Jade can add mobility. So this one seemed to move the most. And you get this beautiful kind of purple crystalline coming out. It's really earthy neutrals. It's really nice. So, but yeah, this one has the most movement, but still, again, it's not running off the piece or anything, which is really nice. And finally, we're gonna apply our last coat of Enchanted Forest onto this tile here. This is definitely not totally dry. But I'm just going to go ahead and put on another coat. You could definitely get away with 2 coats with this glaze. A lot of the time with our crystal glazes, the crystals kind of allow product to pool around them, so they kind of go on a little bit thicker if you're laying it on properly, where you're just kind of spreading it across the surface. If you're dragging it, you're definitely going to end up with a light application. So anything like this, you can just tell by the amount of crystals going on if you're applying it thick enough. So even my 1 coat has more crystals than this like 2 coats. So definitely pay attention to how you're applying it to have success with this product, or really any glaze, all glazes. So I think that is all that I have today for Enchanted Forest. As always, please drop any questions or comments that you have in the comments, and I would be happy to answer them. I really appreciate the feedback about these. I really hope you all found this helpful. Definitely check out our website. We have a lot of glaze combinations. We have a searchable glaze combo gallery, so check that out for additional information there. And as always, thanks for tuning in today, and make it Mako.